So I heard that during your photo walk a few months ago, you gave everybody an assignment based off of an emotion, based off of what you were currently going through. And I think a lot of photographers, whether they are leading a group or for themselves, it's hard to come up with a prompt. What, in your experience, have you seen as a benefit of like these self-assigned photography projects?
Assignment itself, it really boils down to what is assignment, right? You have to have like knowledge in photography to really have the language to describe assignments.
Okay.
And that comes with exposure to other assignments, perhaps. Perhaps it's to books, to journal, to see photojournalism and to see what's possible. When you didn't know what's possible, it's hard to narrow it down to what it is.
That's a good point.
And perhaps that's why I use emotion a lot, because it's a universal sort of feeling. It's not tied into a technique. It's more of an expression. And I think most people in all level of photography can relate. However, that's not to say, by learning something before you even do it, kind of box you in as well.
Yes, that's right. You kind of get indoctrinated into like a way of thinking.
Yeah, things doesn't have to always happen in one way, and to know how it should happen, right, could potentially lock you into this box, the only way that you can do it. So what is helpful is also to between assignments from bigger organization and institution is to self-assign random things, right? You could be thinking, what's the word? In my mind, the Chinese word 脑洞. It's like the hole in your brain. It's almost like the black hole in your brain that is full with possibilities. Is when you're getting into that creative zone and to just explore the galaxy of things.
Yeah. That's what that randomness fills in, or your randomness is drawing from that area?
That's when you tune into that energy. Right? I think a lot could be done when you are just exploring the possibilities.
And it's really interesting that a lot of what typical assignments come from in the photojournalism world, they're very literal. Like, hey, go out and photograph this neighborhood, go out and photograph this person. Typically, right? Or would you say not?
It's changing.
Oh, you think so?
It is changing a lot. I've seen some really great publications and directions coming from Southeast Asia, East Asia, and Europe.
In what way? Do you have an example off the top of your head?
If you think about photography, when it rivaled with painting, and that's when painting went to this expressionism,
right,
abstract, is because it's no longer, photography can capture true life, right, as is, and they think the artness of it was gone. And so painting became this abstract, this expressionist, and now I think photography is taking that direction. I think it's how things goes.
I think it is, yeah. I remember a conversation I had with a really old person in 2014. This is my 4th year doing photography, and I was just kind of sitting around in a group, and there was this person who just asked, what we all do. And when it came to my turn, we were all still students, but I said I'm a photographer, I really like the art stuff, and then she's like, photography is not an art. And I was just taken aback by that. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, all you gotta do is just click a button. So at least from my experience of that specific situation, I guess there are still people from the very much outer perimeter of consuming photography. They think that because it's so literal, that it is not an art form, because you're really just capturing what's literally right in front of you, and that there isn't much thought that goes into it, versus stereotypical thought of painters is that, there is expressionism, there's a lot of cubism, there's pointillism, there's all this other stuff that kind of plays into the stereotypical realm of what art is. But I would very much argue against that. You can very much argue against that. But all that to say, from the work that you and I do, a lot of people can see it as literal. In your ongoing project about the Gray Hairs project,
that's as literal as it can be.
There is a very literal component of it for sure, because you're just walking up to people who you find interesting, who their age is their beauty, you can sense that. But because you express that part, that component of the project, I think that opens up an avenue of thought for, there is an abstract emotional element to it. It's not just oh, you're old, let me take your photo. Like there's very much more that goes into it, and it does come through the picture. So the question that, or what I'm curious about for you is that, do you think that when you are going out and making photos that really resonate with who you are as a person, do you think that there is a really great balance of that abstract and literal? Because for me, it's very much literal.
Why take photography so seriously when you can just capture what you see?
Yeah.
When it's just beautiful. Sometimes you don't have to understand why it is. Sometimes it's just a feeling, it's like you're just drawn to it. That's one part of the thought. But then the second part of the thought, so I did this, you know how I love portraits, and I know you do too. And it's such an easy, not easy, but it's a very fundamental way of photography.
Yes.
And I think in my brain, it's easy to take a portrait because it's presented in front of you.
Yes.
And so to challenge myself, I did this 1 month. This is the last YouTube video I ever did. Stop taking portrait for a month. So I didn't take portrait for a whole month to try to cleanse what I see. And I realized at the end, one of maybe the best lesson for myself is that I capture stories because I see them and I capture, like what you're saying in the question, like you capture what's in front of you.
Literally in front of you.
When you take a portrait, you're taking their narrative, usually. They present whoever they are, you made them pretty. On the flip side, you could also use your camera in a way that you express how you want their narrative to be. It's so much harder that way.
Okay.
It's so much harder that way, and it could be abstract.
So what I love a lot about what you just said plays into my curiosity into that more abstract realm of thinking, photographing, creating. Mainly when I'm following a story, I take it for what it is first. Like very much like a kind of like a funnel method where it's like, okay, I take the obvious and then we start to dig deeper and then I try to find more of like an essence. And the thing that I drew most out of my personal West 4th project was the fact that family and community was a huge element of that basketball court. It's not just the athletic part of it, it's not the whole heat of the game moment, because there were a lot of parents who played in this league and they would bring their kids, and it was amazing that whole families would come out. Whole families would be so passionate about it. And I would even love to photograph the scenes where the players' kids are sitting on the bench next to them, that the kids are witnessing that their father is in the heat of battle, being super intense, and then when they come back to the bench to sit next to them, they're like the nurturing father again. It was such a beautiful contrast of a human experience that I loved photographing. That was the more abstract thing that came out of it.
I think in a way that is still observation.
Yeah.
Like you're observing what's around you, and there is a next level to the abstraction. So I'm trying to think, you know the photographer Eaten by Flower on Instagram? So his works are literal and abstract at the same time because he knows exactly what he wants. I think that's where like you wait for the moment. You wait to see what story unfold. You capture that. He create that story in a way that, like, you remember the 3 cars?
Yes.
Right? Like he wants. He wait for that. There's like this bird scooters and then like a bunch of bird scooters and there's a pigeon.
Oh, that's funny.
Right? So like he insert a narrative into his photograph. He is observing, but he knows exactly what he wants, and not like he's not waiting. He doesn't know this is gonna come. He created that, like almost.
And like you said earlier, it's really hard to externalize that abstract element because like abstraction in general, by definition, is just anything that doesn't immediately connect with reality. I know that there is that element of family and community in my photos, but that's not necessarily externalized to everybody. Versus someone like Jeremy, Eaten by Flowers, he does a better job of making that almost like right in the front row for some people.
Yeah, his thing is, I don't think we do a lot of that. Like he has a lot of humor, and also he's very surreal, like in his photograph. And that's not exactly the direction we take in our photography journey so far. So yeah, it's very different. Like I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but it's like a completely different field. But I feel very inspired by seeing his work.
Yeah, and what's so interesting about it is that my brain doesn't immediately like exercise that part of my creativity.
And that's why I do lots of like limitation to kind of try to help myself, like the black and white and the no portraits and all that. I always think of photography as a language. I don't know if you think that way. Like,
I also think that way, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a language that I'm trying to learn. There's complexity in a language that I used to only take one-dimensional photo, right? I do one thing and that's it. A face, that's it. A flower, that's it, right?
Single subject, yeah.
Right, because you don't have the vocabulary. You don't know what's possible. And the more you learn, you can better express yourself. And then there comes layers, there comes humor, it comes narrative, it comes to so much different complex emotions. And I think I am urging myself to express more. Like the longer you're learning this language, the more you want to say.
Yeah.
Like the more complex feeling you're trying to express and to tell people, and like sometimes you feel like you're lack of words. You're like don't have enough to express, enough tool to help you express. So that's why recently I'm just so drawn to like a less direct way. It's not just literal, but like a less direct way of saying what I want to say.
Yeah.
It's like language become poetry because I have some words that is not directly describing what I'm feeling, but it's resembling how the scene looks like.
Not necessarily like masking it with metaphor, but you're utilizing different language devices in photography to express what you're saying. So how do you come up with these prompts for yourself?
Sometimes talking out loud help you form ideas and help you understand your emotion. So a lot of it, like the far and near concept, was through talking to my parents and a photographer who I just met at the time. She's been taking photographs for like years, and she prints beautiful black and white photos. I met her literally the day when I found out that my grandma passed, and she was there for me. We just met that day. I was really vulnerable, and I was talking to her about how I'm feeling, and I don't even know how to express, and my brain was fogged. And the more we talked about it, we were like, the concept of far and near comes. And then I put on paper and I start writing it out, what that really means. A lot of it comes from that. So, yeah.
So for you in your own artistic process, what are some of the greatest benefits when you do step into that abstract metaphorical thought?
For myself.
For yourself?
We talked about this off camera before we start filming, that Chris mentioned that I'm quite good at hiding my feelings and hiding my emotions.
You want to bring that up? I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Like people who know me in real life might know a bit more of my story, and however, like I hold my photos so dearly. I can notice the subtle differences in different time period, like in my photograph from different time period. When I'm hurt, photograph shows. It's almost like an indicator. So in a way, doing abstract photos, sometimes it comes without noticing that I'm just doing it to express either a good or bad feeling, but also at times without telling everyone literally what I'm feeling, I show them in my photograph. not of a sad face.
Yeah, because that would be literal.
Right. I hold a lot of emotions in my photograph, and by doing it abstractly, help me still talk about it without talking about it.
Interesting. Mhm.
That's like quite literal benefit for myself.
There's so much music that I consume that metaphor is the way that they express their story. Like there's so much music that talks about how they lived in one place, experienced one thing, and then they made it out of that. That would be the most literal point A to point B, 3-act narrative that anybody can describe in music with a beat under it. But the ones that are masked in metaphor, hyperboles and similes and all this stuff, I'm like, whoa, this has drawn me into your story so much where I need to read the words that you're choosing because there is a meticulous decision behind it. And even through the actual instrumentation of the music, it's like, dang, there's so much of that. I wish I can have that in my work, kind of really pouring that abstract metaphorical thought into my work. That's why I'm so interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, music and photo are so connected. Yeah.
And it's so powerful when music can make you see things. And when a photo can make you hear things. That's,
Feel.
yeah, and obviously feel, but that's just powerful when a medium can make you activate another like sensory, another
There's
sense.
a word for it, right? Like, I know in Chinese, 通感 or synesthesia is a fancy name for when you experience one of your senses through another. So, yeah, I think it crosses.
Would you say that black and white steps into that abstract thought? Because that's the reason why I picked black and white for most of my work now.
Yeah, I think for me, because there's so much, the composition of it, right? The lines, the texture, the layers is what really form the photo.
Yeah.
Instead of like what is seen.
The color
right?
composition, yeah.
So I try to even shoot any chrome as if it's a black and white.
Oh. Mm.
It helps a little bit because the composition, you're changing how you see things. And that's why doing things that everyone knows what it is on chrome, like any kind of like lomo chrome, it's fun because it will be like a watermelon that doesn't look like a watermelon.
Not at all.
Yeah. That's how I would choose to shoot them. But
Awesome.
I don't know.
Well, thank you for being part of this conversation. Where can my peoples find you?
Instagram is where I'm most active, where you can find the daily things that I post.
Yeah.
And then YouTube is where I have a little more deeper conversation. I try to be more active on it. Yeah, I know Chris has been telling me because it was a group effort. The whole channel was supposed to be like a bunch of my friends doing it all together. But Chris has been telling me I should change the name just to Sissi. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, find me there, or just like go to Chris DM and be like,
Don't go in my DMs.
yeah.
That's awesome. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.